Walking back up the stairs of the sober house, Stephen Adler now finds himself richer for the love of the people who care about him. And he's been given the benefit of a wonderful gift, the chance to truly start over. A misconception about sober living that people might have is that the residents all arrive on one day and leave on the same day. The fact is they come and go every day.
It's like Leave It to Beaver, if Beaver was a vial of crack. I'm talking about VH1's amazing show, Sober House. It chronicles the experience of celebrities in recovery. They move into a house for several weeks to make the transition from junkies to new lives, free of drugs and alcohol. The series premiered last month, and like a junkie, I think I'm hooked. Joining us is the great man who supervises the recovering addicts, the great Dr. Drew Pinsky. Drew, like I said, I'm totally addicted to your show, which kind of makes you an enabler. Why is this show so much fun to watch, even though there's a lot of sadness involved?
Well, you know, funny. I mean, I'm actually surprised at the popularity of Sober House as compared to Celebrity Rehab. And by the way, Greg, just for you, just so I stop my enabling, I'm going to have a new program. It'll be called Celebrity Rehab.
Oh,
so just for you specifically.
Fantastic.
So be that as it may, you know, the Sober House piece, why people find that so interesting is sort of confusing to me, because the original sort of notion we had actually came into focus one day when Bob Forrest walked in my office and said, you know, I'm sick and tired of celebrities being portrayed as sort of on a vacation when they're actually very sick. And we took care of a lot of celebrities, and he also was concerned about how our work is portrayed in the media. And he goes, you know, we got to do a TV show. And I thought, well, funny you should say that. People were talking about it. We did Celebrity Rehab. We wanted to show people what treatment was like. And then after we finished two of those series, we sort of looked at each other and went, you know, there's this bigger piece that no one understands they've got to do, a more delicate part of the process. If people don't do that sober living piece, they don't stay sober, and that's often where a lot of stuff goes down. And unfortunately, I think it's that tension of the potential disaster that people like watching. I don't like watching that. I like the treatment part.
I think you've got one of the toughest jobs in the world when I watch it, because I see you stressed out a lot. The thing that is interesting, I find, about the show is that for me, I wish there was something like that 20 years ago, because it is better than a PSA announcement or anything in terms of scaring you away from doing any kind of narcotic.
No, I appreciate that. In fact, it's sort of a scared straight message, isn't it?
At least for 2 hours. At least for 2 hours, but then I'm back on it.
Yeah. Well, if you want your kids not to do drugs, have them watch this show and look at the real consequences of this. But, you know, this is a very serious condition. It's sort of to my mind, it's the medical problem of our time. As the pharmaceutic addiction just blows out of control, this is something that people need to know about. They need to be able to identify it. They need to understand what treatment is. They need to understand how difficult treatment is.
Yeah, but now, here's my question, because you talk about it being a condition. Is it, I mean, there are different ways to look at this. Do you see it as a medical condition, or, I mean, I sometimes just see it as selfishness, a refusal to grow up. As long as you can get away with doing something, and you have a lifestyle that allows you to do it, you continue to do it. Am I right, or partially right?
Well, no, I mean, there's many levels to your question there, Greg. I'm sorry to say. Yeah. I don't want to bore your audience with this, but the fact is, yes, celebrities are able to act out because of their celebrityness more than an average person. You or I, somebody who employed us or our family, would go, hey, get it together, or we need to go get some treatment for you. Well, these folks, I mean, look what happened to Anna Nicole Smith. She started spiraling out of control. No, when people tried to say no, she said, sayonara, I'm leaving the country, and continued in her addiction, and finally died of it. That's how that happens. But the question of, is this a condition? There's absolutely no doubt about that. I mean, it has a genetic predisposition associated with it, which accounts for about 60% of the disease process. It is incited by environmental triggers, the most common trigger being trauma. And if you see in Celebrity Rehab, every one of our participants had significant childhood trauma, and that genetics with that trauma is what incites the disease. And whether or not it is a disease or not, I ask anyone who's questioning that to first answer the question, what is a disease? Define disease, then you tell me if addiction doesn't fit that model. It happens to be a chronic disease that requires regular treatment, very much like diabetes, which if you don't do the treatment, your blood sugar goes out of control. Same thing is true of addiction. If you don't do the treatment every day, your addiction goes out of control.
Hey, is it true that you have an asteroid named after you?
Some radio listener one time named it. I think that's true. Don't you have one? Doesn't everyone have one?
No, I don't. But I want one. I think that really bothers me. But how's Stephen Adler doing?
Stephen, just so you know, was rearrested a couple days ago. But he's actually doing well. I talked to his lawyer yesterday, and he was rearrested for not having done this beach cleanup community service he's supposed to do. He actually is in treatment, doing well. It's court-mandated treatment. And the patients that we dealt with in celebrity rehab who were court mandated to care have done very, very well. So Jessica Sierra, remember her from season 1, the American Idol contestant who really had horrible addiction, went back to Florida, torched out, got arrested, was going to be sent away for 5 years. I went down there, begged for treatment. She got a year of treatment, and I just gave her her year cake about 2 weeks ago, and she is doing remarkably. I mean, she is just an absolute inspiration.
How about what I love?
You guys want a cake too?
Yeah, I could
I
use
hear the background. They want cake.
That's Bill. But cake is a code for something totally perverted. The one thing I really like about the show are the hanger-ons, like Jeff Conaway's girlfriend and Mary Carey's boyfriend/manager. How do you keep from not strangling these people?
It's not that I don't wish I couldn't, but yeah, David was a source of concern for Mary all treatment. Vicky, Vicky looks worse on TV than she is. I mean, if you really look at no, I'm not kidding. I mean, TV has to have a good guy and a bad guy.
Yeah.
And Vicky really did a lot of treatment in Celebrity Rehab 2 and was getting better. And I really spent a great deal of time sort of separating them. We were going to move her out. We had a place for her to live. And then at the last minute, after Jeff beat her, if you remember, she caved in and decided to go back with him. And I was very disappointed about that.
Well, I love the show. We got to go, and I got so many questions for you. Will you please come back? And I want to go over everything.
I was just telling somebody I'm going to be in New York in a couple of weeks. I will come in the studio. Okay?
Fantastic.
Okay.
That's made my week. Thank you, Dr. Drew. Sober House airs Thursday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern on VH1.